There is a moment in the third chapter of Genesis that almost slips past you if you're not paying attention. God walks into the garden in the cool of the evening. That detail alone is worth pausing on. This image of God arriving at the end of the day like someone coming home, and he calls out to the man. And what he says is this: where are you? 3 words. The first question God ever asks a human being in all of Scripture. And if you think about that for even a moment, it becomes one of the strangest verses in the Bible. Because this is God, the same God who, a few chapters earlier, spoke light into existence, who stretched out the heavens, who formed Adam from the dust and breathed life into him personally. This God does not have an information problem. He is not confused about Adam's location. He knows exactly where Adam is, crouching behind some bushes, wrapped in hastily sewn fig leaves, hoping somehow that the creator of the universe won't notice him. So why ask? That question, why ask, is the door into everything this passage is really about. The easy reading is that God is being rhetorical, that the question is loaded with divine accusation, the way a parent might say, "And just what do you think you're doing?" Not seeking information, but delivering a verdict. And there's something to that. The question does carry weight. It does force Adam into the open. But I think something else is happening here, something much more interesting. Because the tone of this scene is not the tone of a courtroom. God isn't descending in thunder. He's walking. He's calling. The Hebrew word used, aika, is intimate. It's the kind of word you use with someone you know. It's less interrogation and more search. What if the first question God ever asks a human being is not an accusation, but an act of longing? What if "where are you" means exactly what it sounds like? I came to be with you and you're gone and I want to find you. Now look at what Adam says in response. He says, "I heard you in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid." This is one of the most psychologically precise descriptions of shame ever written, and it was written thousands of years before anyone had a word for psychology. Notice the sequence. First, "I heard you." The sound of God, which presumably had always been a source of joy, something Adam had known every evening, now triggers fear. The relationship hasn't just changed. It has inverted. What was once the best part of the day has become something to hide from. Then, "I was afraid." Fear as the immediate consequence of broken relationship. Not punishment from outside, but rupture from within. The fear comes before God says a single word of judgment. Adam is already afraid before the conversation even begins. And then, "I was naked and I hid." This is the part that should make us stop. Because Adam was naked before. That's explicit in chapter 2. He was naked and felt no shame. The nakedness hadn't changed. What changed was his inner state. Shame is not about the facts of your situation. It's about how you now see yourself. And once shame enters, the most natural thing in the world, the only thing that seems possible, is to hide. And here is what's remarkable about God's response to all of this. He doesn't immediately say, "I know. I saw everything. Let's talk about the fruit." He lets the conversation unfold. He asks another question. "Who told you that you were naked?" He's not confused. He's drawing Adam out, getting Adam to trace the thought back to its source. This is not the behavior of someone who came to condemn. This is the behavior of someone who came to understand, or more precisely, to help Adam understand himself. And yes, there are consequences. That part of the story is real and serious and unavoidable. But notice that before any consequence is named, God has a conversation. He gives Adam and Eve a chance to speak. He listens, even to excuses. The judgment, when it comes, arrives only after the relationship has been given space. That sequence matters. It tells us something about who is asking the question. Now here is where I want to land, because this reflection isn't really about Adam. The text survives because it's about us. Where are you? Every human being alive right now is somewhere in relation to God, spiritually, existentially, personally. And the honest answer for most of us, most of the time, is somewhere in the bushes. Not dramatically far away. Not in open rebellion. Just hidden. Going through the motions. Filling the silence with noise so we don't have to hear the question. We have extraordinarily sophisticated modern fig leaves, busyness, achievement, scrolling, the constant management of how we appear to others. We are perhaps the most distracted civilization in history, and it is worth asking, distracted from what exactly? What is it we're so reluctant to be still long enough to face? The question, where are you, has a way of cutting through all of it if you let it. Not as an accusation, as an invitation. God is not asking because he lost track of you. He's asking because he wants you to know that he noticed you were gone, that the absence registered, that the garden isn't the same without you in it. There's a thread that runs from this question in Genesis all the way through to the end of the New Testament, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The whole biblical story is, in one sense, God's extended answer to Adam hiding in the bushes. Every covenant, every prophet, every psalm of lament and return, it's all God refusing to stop asking the question, refusing to pretend the distance isn't there, refusing to let humanity stay hidden. And it culminates, Christians would say, in the most radical possible response to the problem. Not another question called across a garden, but God coming into the garden, taking on flesh, walking in the cool of the evening not as a voice from outside, but as a presence within. The Word, as John puts it, dwelling among us. The question doesn't disappear in the New Testament. Jesus asks versions of it constantly. What are you looking for? To the disciples at the Jordan. Who do you say that I am? To Peter. Why are you weeping? Who are you looking for? To Mary Magdalene at the tomb. In a garden, again, at the beginning of a new creation. The question keeps coming because the hiding keeps happening. That's just what humans do. We hear the sound of God approaching, and something in us panics and reaches for the nearest leaves. But here's what I find most striking about that original scene. Adam hid. God came looking. That's the whole story, compressed into two actions. Not Adam sinned, so God left. Not Adam failed, so the relationship ended. Adam hid. And God came walking through the garden, calling his name, asking a question that was really an outstretched hand. Where are you? It's still being asked. The only real question is whether we're willing to step out from behind the bushes and answer.